to Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Thanks for being with us. Pat Gowan, one of the editors with the Post-Dispatch, is here. Welcome, Pat.
I can't.
And Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph, is alongside. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, guys.
Jim, Governor Quinn gave his State of the State address last week. However, there wasn't much talk about the state's finances. Are you surprised by that fact?
Well, we have a governor that, first of all, didn't earn the office and got it through a matter of circumstances. Now reelected and in damage control, the state is in a terrible hole. When you call the State of a State address, you probably don't want to stand amongst the congregated officials there and tell them that we're in a deep hole that we don't know how to dig out of. So it's just easier to say, well, I don't really want to talk about numbers. We'll talk about that when we do the budget speech here in a few weeks. The Governor Quinn suggested a couple of tax cuts, which just really amazed me, given the hole that the state is in the multi-billions of dollars. One suggestion was a income tax credit for families with children up to 2 children at $50 apiece, so it'd be $100, which is, okay, that's not bad, but again, we have a hole that we can't fill, we have bills that we can't pay, and we're going to tell everybody, I'm going to save you $100 a year. The other one that he suggested was elimination of the tax on natural gas, which, of course, not everyone in the state uses natural gas, but to those who do, the residential savings might be, they always use averages of $32 a year. So, less than $3 a month. So a cut of the two combined might be upwards of $300 million to the state. But it's not money that the state has to give back because we still have all of these debt obligations here that we're not paying our bills. We really can't afford, as much as I hate to advocate any tax, we really can't afford to give any money back. We don't have any money, enough money to pay our rent, and we're going to give a lot of money to to the Girl Scouts or something or other. We just don't have the money to give back. So we editorialized Monday that it came off as political pandering, and that's what I think it was. This was, we're not going to talk about how bad a shape the state is in. We're not going to talk about how we're going to figure out how to pay our bills, but we're going to talk about giving families back maybe $132 a year per person. I don't understand it. The third tax credit that he talked about is actually an extension of a tax credit that is already in place, which would be a tax credit for hiring veterans to employers, or a tax credit to employers for hiring veterans. That tax credit is in place, and by Quinn's office own admission, it's underutilized now. I think it's $600 per veteran, and there was only about $80,000 paid out or not collected last year, which is not a huge amount of money. So I think the speech was exactly that. It was political in nature. It was assuring everyone, man, woman, and child, not the elected officials in the room, that everything is rosy and we're going to figure this out, and we have so much money and we're in such good shape that we can afford to cut taxes to the working class. It's not there. The state can't afford to give any money back, and if that's $300 million that we really don't need, let's just earmark those funds as they come in to debt reduction. Well, pull it out of the general fund and just set it aside and say, okay, if we generate $300 million this year on these two taxes, that's $300 million more that we can pay back to our vendors.
Pat, not much talk about finances in the governor's State of the State address. Were you surprised by that?
The State of the State address was sort of like the captain of the Costa Concordia standing at the muster station and telling people as they're loading the lifeboats, giving them the schedule of the next cruise. And the tax increases were like giving them a voucher for a free drink at the bar before it goes under with the rest of the ship. I mean, it's not a bad analogy. On the other hand, we have a sort of two-section bifurcated system in Illinois where you've got a State of the State address to lay out your grand visions, the agenda for the coming year, how we're going to make the state greater. And you've got the budget address, which will be coming up the 22nd of February, where you talk about what budget you're going to propose and essentially how you're going to pay for all these grand visions. I don't know that any governor has ever faced a State of the Union speech with a State of the Union that was as dismal as 2012 State of Illinois. So it's easy to criticize what he said. On the other hand, what can he say? Folks, the honest to God truth about the State of the State is that all we can hope for is to survive until next year any way we can and wait until an economic recovery finally puts lift under the economic wings of a state that's pretty much run out of wind for the sails altogether. He can't say that. How can he possibly say that? So he didn't overgild the lily. He talked about some programs and some progress and looked for some kind of positive thing. So I don't want to be quick to fault him for that address because it was a mess. What's he going to do, cancel it? We're not going to have it this year, which would be in a way the prudent thing to do, but politically you can't do that. The tax cuts seem strange to me. They're feel good. They're minor going either way. They're minor to the individuals who receive them. They are minor to the state and the losses, but this is a state that can't afford to lose 10 cents. The backdrop of this is that by 2017, we're talking about a backlog of unpaid bills at the current rate that's now being estimated at, I forget what the number was now, it's $35 billion.
Not counting the pension
Not counting the pension obligations, just the unpaid bills. $35 billion is what's that, $35,000 per, no, I'm sorry, it's like $3,000, about 12 million people in the state, it's about $3,000 per man, woman, and child of debt, not to pay for the government, that's just to pay the bills we've incurred that we couldn't afford. I mean, this is stunning, and I guess if you didn't like what you heard in the State of the State address, you're not going to like the budget address very much. And if you didn't like them, unless something changes dramatically, 2013 might be even worse.
Well, but I guess if every man, woman, and child owes $3,000, it's not that horrible to think that they could owe $3,132. But that makes the governor feel better about his speech.
Well, now, if the purpose of this speech is to lay out the grand vision, as you had said, for the state, or a few tax cuts, the best vision we have?
You're looking for something positive to say, you're looking for something to offer to people who feel like, they're not getting anything out of the deal. Whether it's the best he could have come up with, I don't know, but I think he was expected to come up with something, and he can't be too grandiose, he'd get laughed out of the State House. I don't know what the most negative State of the State address ever given was. It's hard for me to imagine a more dire time, but I don't know if anybody's been faced with a State of the State address where you had to mute your visions and mute the expectations so much as he did this year.
Are a few tax cuts the best we could hope for, Jim?
How about the 67% increase in the income tax that went into effect last January?
Well, that's going to be going away here.
Yeah, in 3 more years. I'll take that back instead of the $132. Thank you very much. And yes, I do use natural gas.
Don't hold your breath.
We need to take a break. We'll have more in a moment.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the music program with Dr. Teresa Crane.
Have you always wanted to learn how to play the piano? Maybe you wanted to learn Beethoven's Für Elise. Or maybe you like a more popular style like Jim Brickman. Or maybe you like jazzy blues. stimulus, and more right here at Lewis and Clark Community College.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
When you open a book, you can explore new lands, make new friends, and discover new adventures. There are amazing possibilities when you open your mind to reading. Explore new worlds. Read.
60-inch screen, high definition. Football season is coming up. You can watch it right here. What do you think?
I'll take it.
Huh? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
You're right. I don't need it.
You're watching Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Jim Schrader's alongside, as well as Pat Gowan. Pat, there have been discussions in Springfield about the possibility of shifting the pension burden basically to the school districts, community colleges, the different taxing bodies in the state, and getting it away from being Springfield's obligation. Does it make sense? Is it a good idea to shift that pension obligation?
Almost nothing about any of this makes sense. Usual disclaimer, my wife is a public school educator. And in the teacher's retirement system, and expecting to collect when we get old, we'll hope to collect that pension. None of this makes very much sense. I don't understand how we ever came to have a situation where, for example, in Highland, where my wife teaches, the police department's pension, I presume, is handled locally, like most of them are. There's not a state pension for the local police. They've got their own pension funds. They put into it. They administer it. I don't know why the schools were ever done differently from that. It would make sense to have complete control over the money you spend. One of the things that makes no sense about the way we fund teacher pensions is we essentially allow the school board to set the pay on which the pension will be paid. So the school board decides how much you're going to pay the teachers, and the pension is factored onto that, but the school board doesn't have to pay the pension, and the people who pay the pensions don't get to decide how much the school board is going to pay the teachers. That doesn't seem to make very much sense either. But it's even worse than that, because most of the districts have some sort of end-of-career incentive to boost the last few years of your pay so that it will enhance your pension. As a possible co-collector of one of those pensions, I think that's a great idea. But does it really make sense to say, okay, we're gonna give you a raise in each of your last 4 years or whatever it is, so that at the end of 4 years you'll be making a whole lot more money to as the basis for the pension that we don't have to pay. There's this disconnect between the people who are making the decision and the people who are having to pay for it. So to that extent, I'm sympathetic with all this. The problem is, it's been done this way all this time. All the obligation has already been taken on by the state. It's only become an issue when the state got itself into such financial distress, partly from generations of underfunding the pension, that now they're desperate and they're looking for somebody else to be the scapegoat. They're looking at the school districts. The average, from what I read, it's about $1.3 billion a year that would be shifted to downstate school districts. And there are 866 school districts in Illinois, but not all of them are in the downstate. Some of them are in the Chicago area. I'm guessing you're looking at something like an average of $1.5 million that lands into the lap of the school board as some new thing that they've got to pay for at a time when they're as desperate in some cases as the state. So you're going to raise property taxes. The local property people aren't going to be very happy about that. I don't understand how you can just hand it over. Maybe you can transition it in some way from state funds to local funds, and that probably would be a laudable goal. But you've got to find some way to manage it. And at Springfield, the state officials just seem to want to jettison any debt they've got, any expenses they've got, put it back on the local governments. It's no longer our problem. If you're a taxpayer in Highland, Illinois, or anywhere else in Illinois, you pay taxes to a variety of places for a variety of purposes. And I don't think most people are sophisticated enough about taxes to even understand how their schools are financed, the difference between the property tax they pay the school district and the income tax they pay the state, which gives back by a formula to the school district. If the pensions don't make sense, the way we fund public schools doesn't really make any sense either, because part of it's the local property tax, part of it's the state income tax sent back under a formula, and the local school districts don't even know how much they're going to get or when they're going to get it from the state. The whole system is insane. It seems to me that this might be a good time to try to step back and put together a gradual grand plan for how it all ought to work, including the regional school superintendents, which have been controversial, all of this. Somebody needs to put together a grand plan so that we have some idea of what the heck we're trying to do, because we put it together in a piecemeal fashion that doesn't make sense, and it doesn't do us a lot of good if we try to take it apart in a piecemeal fashion, which may also not make sense.
I suspect that we're going to see the grand plan on February 22nd when the governor has his budget address. Ain't gonna happen.
Well, there's no local input. There can't possibly
No, of
be the
course
kind
not.
of plan I'm talking about without a lot of stakeholders over a long period of time.
What amazed me most about this suggestion was, and we talked about it in the first question, how big a hole the state is in. When this suggestion came about was, well, we'll take the pension obligation for these teachers and shift it from the state's responsibility to the local school district's responsibility. And that will free up more money at the state to spend on education. That's what it said in the release. Excuse me?
More insanity.
We're going to not spend money on pensions that we don't have, so that the local school districts have to figure out how to pay it. And instead, we're going to spend that money that we don't have on something else to make everybody feel good. Imagine the obligation, especially for small school districts, where an increase of $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 a year, you came up with an average of like 1.3.
$1.5 million, yeah.
But let's say smaller school districts, there's going to be some fraction of that. Larger districts, Alton, Edwardsville, so forth, are going to be multiples of that probably. Where's that money going to come from? Okay, as Pat pointed out, it's kind of diluted now. We really don't know what portion of our property taxes and income taxes go to the state and allegedly gets filtered back for all aspects of education, which includes the pension obligation. We're not going to enjoy a state tax decrease because they shift the obligation to the local school districts. Okay, your state portion of your taxes are not going to go down because we're going to shift $1.6 million in pension obligation to the Highland school system. But the Highland school system is going to have to go out to all of the voters in their area and say, we're going to have a property tax increase in the Highland School District to cover this pension obligation that the state handed us back. A tax increase by any other name. I don't care if it's a state tax increase or a local tax increase. The pension obligation has to be covered somehow. The state just does a Pontius Pilate and washes their hands and says, well, it's not on our hands anymore. It's according to your superintendent and the school board. Blame them that your taxes are going up. I would feel better about this if the state said, okay, we're going to eliminate our funding of the teachers' pension obligation. We're going to give it back to the school districts, and therefore all the taxes in the state are going to go down by a like amount. That's not what they're suggesting. They're going to hold on to that money, ostensibly to spend it on education. I suspect it's probably going to go in the general fund, but that's just my cynicism here talking. And then all of the school districts, all the superintendents, and all of the boards are going to have to explain to the voters in their area why they have to ask for a property tax increase just to stay even.
If I'm a lawmaker, is this a way for me to continue to be a lawmaker because it was the local school board that raised taxes, or will people see through that and still blame the lawmaker?
It's smoke and mirrors. I would hope that the local school districts would be honest with it and say just that. We didn't ask for this. You got a problem with your local taxes going up? I'll explain to you who to write, and they're all in the Springfield zip code, which is where their offices are. They dumped this on us, but we have to figure out how to pay it.
We need to take a break. We'll have more Metro Talk in a moment.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the radio broadcasting program in WLCA with Mike Lemons.
Have you ever listened to your favorite radio station or your favorite disc jockey and say, I could do that? Or maybe you're the type of person who says, I could never do something like that. Well, with the help of first-year mass comm student John, We're going to show you just how easy it is. Each voice intro starts with talking about the band that just played, and we add a station identifier. Next, you want to offer some information that may be of interest to your audience. And finally, tell the listeners what the next song is, who sings it, followed by another station identifier. John will do one live now.
Silver Sun Pickup substitution on WLCA. The Big Pink released their debut album called A Brief History of Love. The single is off that album. It's The Big Pink with Dominoes. It's on College Radio's Best 89.9.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
What's that? I don't know. Something I kind of made. Ooh, what's it do?
What do I do? Well, thanks for asking. I ring my bell and I like to dance. What do I do? Well, thanks for asking.
How? Yeah, it still needs a little work.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org.
Sounds like you could use some Van Gogurt. It's fortified with arts-rich nutrients to improve your math and reading skills. Catch!
Van Gogurt, thanks. So what's the deal with your ear?
Always with the ear, huh?
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
You're watching Metro Talk. I'm Kent Sheffel. Jim Schrader and Pat Gowan are alongside. Jim, Senator Bill Hayne has broken ranks with the Democratic Party, and particularly President Obama. The Obama administration has issued an order that directs most employers to provide copay-free coverage for contraceptives, sterilization, and abortion-inducing drugs. Is Hayne correct in questioning his Democratic colleagues?
Well, I'll start by saying that I am not a Catholic. Senator Hayne is a Catholic, and he based his opinions on primarily on the fact that this is absolutely against the teachings of his church and against the teachings of everything that his church stands for. I happen to agree with him in this particular case. I think that the federal government has overstepped its bounds here, that well, one of the freedoms that we allegedly hold dear, and I say allegedly because that's getting pretty shaky all the time, is the separation of church and state. The church as an employer, or a church school, or affiliated organizations, in my opinion, has the right to set up the standards for their benefits for their employees according to their core beliefs. And in this particular case, for the Catholic Church and others, but the Catholic Church primarily because that's the largest one, this is absolutely goes against everything that is taught in their church. The fact that that church or that church school organization would have to supply with no copay, just basically supply through their insurance coverage, contraceptive drugs or potentially abortion-inducing drugs is just absolutely contrary to my understanding. We had a discussion of this the other day around the newsroom, and one of my folks said something about, well, you know, a right to health care and women's contraceptive care should be a right. I pointed out that health care is a benefit, not a right. It's a benefit that some employers offer, but not others. It is a benefit. He pointed out that the Obama administration, if the so-called Obamacare goes through unchanged, that every man, woman, and child in America will have the right to quality health care. And I said, well, at what point in time does the state who is mandating this, the federal government is mandating this, also has to come up with the money to cover that, the expenses to cover. This is an increase, by the way, to any insurance provider. because your insurance premiums are set upon a plan on what you choose to offer. A list of services that your insurance plan will cover. If you add to it the contraceptive drugs or the possibility of abortion-inducing drugs, that's a benefit that is not in the plan now and is potentially adding cost to that employer's plan, which is another unfunded mandate. But in this particular case, and I understand that it would be ridiculous, but that would be like the federal government requiring Orthodox Jews to eat ham once a week, because eating ham is good for pork producers and pork producers is good for the health of America. There has to be a separation there. I am not Catholic, but I do agree with Senator Hayne and others that are saying that the federal government has overstepped its bounds here by mandating the government's beliefs on those of the church.
Pat, is Senator Hayne correct in questioning his Democratic colleagues?
He certainly has every right to do that. Jim has hit upon something that's a very thorny issue. The Obama administration is trying to get some standard of care on which people can rely. I reject your suggestion about the Orthodox Jews. It's more like someone insured by an insurance plan operated by Orthodox Jews being denied a drug that's based on a pig-related serum, and they say, well, that's against our religion. What do you do about a religion that says you can't have blood transfusions? What happens if Lee Enterprises, which employs me, says, we don't believe in transplants. We think that's morally reprehensible. We won't pay for transplants. Where does it end? I know any number of Catholics I've discussed this with who practice birth control, church or not. I know at least one Catholic friend who had an abortion, church or not, has no regrets about that whatsoever. How much does the church get to speak for the consumer of the insurance? Whose insurance is it? Does the insurance belong to the person who's receiving the fringe benefit, or does it belong to the person who's providing the fringe benefit? Under Obama's plan, pretty clearly, a lot of that would turn and it would become more consumer driven, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I'm also not in favor of forcing the Catholic Church to do something that's so reprehensible to its beliefs. I don't have the answer in my pocket, but I do believe in the debate there are two sides to it.
That takes care of another round of Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph, has been here, along with Pat Gowan, one of the editors with the Post-Dispatch. We'll see you next time.